Alright, episode number 6 of the Paranormal Plains podcast. It is a beautiful stormy night here in South Dakota. Finally, winter has subsided a little bit and we have a taste of spring. Has some beautiful thunder. Just amazingness. I absolutely love it. First of all, I would like to say thank you for everybody for hanging in there with me. I have had some pretty serious family issues which took me away from the podcast for a while. Hopefully everything is going to smooth out a little bit better now. We can get back to business as normal. And I would also like to thank everybody that has sent in stories, and I would just encourage everybody to share the page with their friends and hopefully get even more stories so we can keep up with the episodes. The only thing that I ask is it's in the Great Plains area. It can be anything. Ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, doesn't matter. Let's just throw all the paranormal mix in there. It intrigues me all. I love it all. So you can go to the Facebook page, Paranormal Plains Podcast, and send me a message or put your story right on the page there, and I will get it and read it on the next episode, which will be episode number 7. I'm excited about that because I love the number 7 and the number 13. Oh, those are going to be my 2 favorite episodes. Got to do something super cool for those. Well, the first story, we'll get to it right now, is from Shane in South Dakota. My story started out when I was 5 years old. During that time of my life, when we lived in southeastern Wisconsin, moving every few years was commonplace. I don't remember any houses that I lived in before this one, but I remember this old farmhouse quite clearly. It was almost as if my entire life sparked into consciousness the moment we moved into this old home. Before we moved into this house, we looked it over as most people tend to do. It seemed alright until you went into the basement. The basement showed the house's age alone. In fact, the walls were made out of hand-placed stones and mortar. While looking around at the basement that had also had a dirt floor, the realtor showed us a mysterious hole in the wall that had no real explanation. It would seem someone tried to build another room inside the basement, so while walking around, you noticed that there was an area in the wall where someone looked like they had knocked out the bricks with a sledgehammer in an imperfect type of circle that was just large enough for a human being to easily pass through. When you went into the room that lay beyond, there was really nothing there besides the remnants of bricks, a big dirt floor, and a pile of dirt in the corner. I also distinctly remember seeing a dead bird that was black, either a crow or a raven, lying in the basement. The basement had 2 entrances, a storm door that led outside, and the main entrance, which was a hatch with carpeting over it. All that was really visible of this entry was the handle that you had to pull upwards and lift the heavy door in order to go down very steep stairs. This hatch was located underneath the main staircase on the first floor, as that staircase did not have anything behind it. Fast forward to us having moved into this house, it didn't take long for me to notice that something was off. As a child, it's as cliche as any story involving a child having experiences. Anything I mentioned would be dismissed as my imagination. In the beginning, it was more so as a general feeling of anxiety that I cannot explain. To me, it was palpable at all times. I remember not liking the room that was directly above the basement, and would always feel the most unease when I went inside there. I avoided going inside that room. I'm aware that right now the story is beginning to get boring, so I will stop nitpicking all the little details, of which there are plenty, and get to the main event. How long it took for these to start occurring, I'm uncertain, but nightmares started to take over my life. I remember distinctly in one of these dreams being confronted by the main entity itself. I believe it's because I was a child, but it presented itself as a stereotypical demonic or satanic figure. He was large, red, had horns, and just looked evil. He told me that I was going to abandon everything good inside me, and I was going to come join him in the darkness. He said it like he was ordering me to do so, and it was already set in stone that I was going to do it. Now, I always find this part quite interesting. As a 5-year-old, I knew that if I forced all of my willpower at him, he would not be able to touch me. So, in this dream, after he tells me that my fate is to be one of his minions, I did something rather extraordinary. With the additive of many profanities, I screamed and yelled at him, telling him that I would never join him. I told him that he was insane for thinking that I would ever give up everything that was good and divine in my life to come join him. As I told him all of this and screamed at him, he got very livid. The next thing I know, he had placed some type of magic on me, and I was turning into a tree. Looking back on this as an older person, I realized this was sort of a metaphor for what he was doing to me physically in the real world, because it was at this point that I ended up waking up, but I was in a full sleep paralysis. Yes, I could see the room around me. I could hear my mom cooking dinner downstairs, but as much as I felt like I was flailing and trying to get myself to sit up in bed, my body was not moving at all. That was not the last nightmare, nor the last instance of sleep paralysis that I ended up having. It became an ordeal that I had to deal with every night and morning. All I know is that I became terrified to go to sleep, because I knew that when I did, I was going to enter what was my own personal hell on earth. Sometimes, realizing I was asleep, I would try to pull up my eyelids to open them. Sometimes this would work to wake myself, and sometimes it wouldn't. This proves that these dreams were livid. In fact, that I knew I was dreaming. It's very rare nowadays that I have a dream where I realize that I'm actually asleep. It just doesn't happen anymore. I would have dreams about things very disturbing, things I'd never seen in my life before, such as animals acting in a disturbing fashion due to being sick with rabies or some sort of disease. Most of all, though, I cannot explain what those dreams were like. The best I can do is try to get you to imagine what it would be like to dive into the mind of someone who is clinically insane after they have been given LSD. I can only remember one specific dream, and I will describe it to the best of my ability. In this dream, there was a tunnel in front of me. Not just any tunnel, but one that anybody would fear to go inside. It was dark, and there was disturbing creaking and groaning type of noise coming from inside of it. Everything about it told you to run away immediately, but I decided to walk inside the tunnel. I see the walls are distorting like slow waves. Inside the tunnel walls also are filled with holes. Not real holes, more so black distorted spots. As I move on, I start to hear a disturbing, distorted, demonic type of growl. It was at that point that I look inside of me and notice I saw one of our family pets, our dog, inside the wall. She looked, for no other word, disturbing. She was fixed in this teeth-bearing pose, and her body was riddled with holes just like the tunnel walls were. After being shocked at her disturbing appearance, I continued on down this insane and terrifying tunnel. It was then I heard strange purring, and then a distorted and also highly disturbing meow. I looked to the side again, and this time it was our family pet cat. She was stuck in the wall, and much like the dog before her, was riddled with holes. Her fur was patchy, and she looked like she was suffering some kind of disease. And the disturbing sounds continued. That is the only dream that I ever really remember specifically. The rest of them were all chaotic in the same form. They were things that I couldn't have possibly made up with my 5-year-old imagination. They were things that I had never seen in the 5 years of my life that I had at that point lived. And the feeling in these dreams is most indescribably horrible. It depended on which dream I was having, but negative emotions were always very, very prominent. Obviously, fear was in all of them. All of them scared me terribly. However, throughout the nightmares, it progressed into even more negative emotions: hopelessness, sadness, anger, and a sense of wrongness that I can only describe by the word alone. Wrongness. A feeling like everything is just wrong in the most horrible and disturbing way. The sleep disturbances were definitely the highlight of what happened in this house. However, there were other things that did happen once in a while. Things that even my parents noticed but never really gave any thought to. Things such as an animal suddenly falling ill, or door somehow getting locked and leaving us stranded on the roof. Life itself had a gray cloud over it as we lived in this home. Everything seems to get worse. Now, like I mentioned earlier on in the story, our family liked to move every few years, so keeping that tradition, I will fast forward to the point where we moved out of this house. You may think that since we moved, everything stopped. And you would think, and if you think that, you are wrong. We moved about 40 miles south to a new town and a new home. And I mean new home. This house is only about 4 years old, and when we moved into it. At this point, the nightmares, the sleep paralysis, and everything was such a common occurrence in my life, but I didn't really think about the fact that it might stop when we moved into this new house. It was a good thing I didn't have high hopes. It seemed whatever was haunting and terrorizing me decided to follow me 40 miles and continue to do so. However, the nightmares were a lot less frequent and not nearly as terrifying. They were mostly nightmares about being stuck inside of a dream, not being able to get out. The sleep paralysis continued, but once again it was not as common as it had been in the previous home. Whatever had been terrorizing me had lost some of its strength, but not all of it. So I lived my life as normally as I could as a child that was now 9 to 11 years old. Nothing really bothered me much aside from this weird creaking noise the house would make from time to time. However, it was a new house, and I was told it was just water going through the pipes. We lived rather uneventfully, aside from continuance of nightmares and sleep paralysis, in this house for the next 3 years until I was 11. This is where the story picks up and gets interesting again. When we moved, we didn't just move a couple hours away. We moved out of state over 800 miles from where we currently residing in southeastern Wisconsin. The interesting part is I stopped having any experiences in this new home in a different state. I no longer had nightmares. I no longer had one more episode of sleep paralysis. It all seemed to have stopped. It seemed that whatever was haunting me in Wisconsin had not followed me to this new state. This was until I started having dreams about the previous house that we lived in. Not the first old farmhouse where everything had started, but the house that it followed me to. This house became the subject of many dreams every so often. The dreams were strange, but in all of them I had that disturbing feeling that something was wrong. The dreams would entail me and my parents moving back to that house, and for no foreseeable reason other than to just do it. Sometimes the house had just recently moved out of Sometimes the house had just recently been moved out of and the people left all their stuff behind. And sometimes current residents were still living there and we just moved in anyway. The point was pretty clear to me. That house wanted me back. But of course, it wasn't the house. It was whatever I left behind that no longer had a hold of me. Fast forward to where I am right now. I am 31 years old. We left that house when I was 11, and to this day I still have dreams about moving back there for no reason than to be pulled in to the evil once again. Needless to say, I have no desire to go back and be anywhere near that part of Wisconsin again. I know that if I did, I would just enter that hell once again. Now, there would be a lot of theories and a lot of ideas about what exactly happened to me, what type of entity was bothering me, or if it was just some type of mental drama that I was covering up as a child. I am a very open-minded person and open to all possibilities. However, I do have a theory that I like to entertain as being most likely culprit for what I went through as a child. After looking at everything in the paranormal realm of explanations, I believe I found one that seems pretty fitting to what happened. The fact that this haunting got progressively weaker as I moved away from this first house, then altogether went away when I moved out of state, says something to me. It says to me that it may not have been some type of demonic entity, because I know that that would have followed me throughout the world no matter where I would have moved to. So my mind goes to the idea of land curses. Now, southeastern Wisconsin is highly influenced by Native American culture. A lot of towns and countries are named after native tribes. Now, what I think happened is the first house we moved into was somewhere right around the area of where a very brutal land curse was placed. This does not mean that demons were not the culprit for my attacks. From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong or misinformed, but I understand that when Native Americans place a curse on the land, they would open up a spiritual type of portal, enabling all type of malevolent entities to enter in order to keep any other tribe from prospering on the land that they cursed. If this is true, it would make sense as to why the hauntings weakened the further we moved from the place, then stopped altogether. Of course, I could go into a lot more detail than this, but I'm sure you were only here for the scary stuff. In the end, something extremely powerful had a hold on me, and even throughout the miles and the decades of my life, it's still there, waiting. Oh, just sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it? Crazy, crazy. Excellent writing there, by the way. Excellent writing. Well, my thoughts on the whole deal. In my opinion, there is a few things that I'm thinking about right now. I don't know, it's kind of mind-boggling, actually. I would say it is kind of a mixture of both, it seems like. I don't know, maybe I just had too much bourbon when I'm doing this podcast, but like, it pretty much showed itself as the devil. So I would say, yes, kind of demonic, but then again, you can have the significance of, like, the caves and such, you know, that kind of doesn't really ring demonic. That rings more of, like, the Native American, like, curses on the land, that, like you'd saying, you know, and, like, using the animals, the dog and the cat, you know, the Native Americans are really into animals and the spirits and such. I don't know. This has really got me wondering myself now, would that be demonic or would that be more Native American? I tell you what, throw up your thoughts there for me, guys, on the Paranormal Plains podcast page. Tell me what you think this story would fall into, demonic or Native American curses. I don't know. I'm just really confused right now. And I know it's not all because of the bourbon. It's definitely because of, would that be considered this? Would that be considered that? I don't know. But once again, thank you for that story. And next, let me see if I can think of something that I haven't told you about my experiences. Get another personal account in here for you guys. I would say the house in Madison that was on Lincoln Avenue would be another one. There's so many experiences there. It was just crazy. One of the, I don't know, it's like a funny one. Let's get into some funny stuff here. So we saw this very large TV that was sitting at the side of the road that somebody was getting rid of. And I'm like, oh, usually I grab something like that, and I can't get it to work. I somehow can tinker with electronics and get them to work again. Like, this is a nice looking TV. Let's check it out. Well, we took it to the house that we lived in that was crazily haunted, and I plugged it in, dinked around with it, tried to get it going. Couldn't figure out anything with it, so just left it downstairs there and went to bed that night. And yes, this is a house where TVs turn themselves on and stereos turn itself on and off, lights, all that stuff. Hear people walking up and down the stairs. But I don't even know why this scared the hell out of me so much, because I should have been used to it by then. But I was digging around with the TV, couldn't get it going. Then we started doing something else. And then we went to go to bed that night, and laying there, passed out. All of a sudden, 2 o'clock in the morning, this TV downstairs turns itself on, and it is just blasting, like super loud, the white noise on the TV. Scared the living crap out of me. I woke up the girlfriend, and I'm like, we need to get that damn TV out of here now. Went down and took it outside. Man, I don't even know why, but that just freaked the hell out of me. Just the TV, there's no remote to it or anything. It just turned itself on and cranked itself up. But I don't know, that was kind of how that house went, all kinds of crazy stuff. The kids' toys going off and everything. That house was just creepy in itself, but it's just another little story from that house. Moving on, the next story comes from Iowa, from Lucky Girl. I believe in God. I believe there is a heaven and a hell. I thought because I believe in God and pray every day that nothing could ever enter my home. Little did I know. A little about my house first. The house we lived in is my husband's great-grandmother's and has been in the family since 1942. There is no record of the house being built, but you can tell that it is very, very old. Older than 1942. A few weeks ago, my sister-in-law and my 3-year-old nephew were at the house. The weather was nice, so our door was open, letting a nice breeze in. My sister-in-law, myself, and my husband sat on our veranda and visited while we told my nephew, who we will call Billy, to go inside and find some toys to play with. While we were talking, Billy came out and asked us, "Who is that inside?" Keep in mind that only myself and my husband live in our house. Needless to say, we were a little taken back when he asked us that, and I told him that nobody was inside. He looked at us strange, but just went back to playing. Later in our conversation, Billy's mother mentioned it was strange how he saw someone in our house, and asked him if the person was a boy or a girl. Billy said, "A boy." Then he asked if he was tall like his daddy, and Billy said, "No, short like Mommy." We all looked at each other, pondering what he could have seen. About a half hour later, he comes back outside and asks who the person on the couch is. By then, we're starting to get a little nervous. I asked him to bring me inside and show me what he was talking about. We walked inside, and I asked if he could see him right now. He said, "Yes, he's right there on the couch." We walked into the living room, and I asked Billy if he was still there. Billy looked around and walked into the computer room. He looked around the room and said, "No, he's all gone." We were freaked out about it, but laughing as well. Since it's so close to Halloween, we thought that was spooky. Last week, my sister-in-law told me that Billy had told her out of the blue that the man in my house was named Jerry and he wears boots. She said that she has no idea where he would have heard the name Jerry, as they know no one with that name, nor is there anyone at his daycare with that name. I asked my husband if anyone in his family was ever named Jerry, and he said no. Fast forward to last night. I was in the shower and almost ready to get out. I felt something tug on my hair and didn't really think anything about it. All of a sudden, my head was pulled backwards with such a force that I fell all the way back, crashing down into the bathtub. On the way down, I must have tried to stop myself because a brand new bottle of shampoo came right down onto my eye. I started to scream and was climbing out of the bathtub when I felt my back burning. I screamed and cried even louder. My husband came running into the bathroom and asked what had happened. I couldn't even talk. I was so hysterical. I just knew I wanted to get as far away from that bathroom as possible. My husband got angry with me because I couldn't tell him what happened. He stormed down into our basement. I immediately called my stepfather, who is a man of God. He told me that I had to read aloud from the Bible and pray in every room, casting out anything that was not from Jesus. I was scared, but the house is mine, and I will not have it taken away from me. I went into every room, including the bathroom. When I got to our computer room, I froze. The air was heavy, and I felt faint. I prayed and read from Psalms, and left that room as soon as I could. I went into the bedroom to inspect my body afterwards to see what the damage was. I was starting to feel everything now that the adrenaline was wearing down. When the bottle fell on my eye, it immediately left a bump with a cut. I knew I'd have a black eye in the morning. Bruises were starting to form on my arms already. My ankle and knee felt as if I had twisted them. I then turned around and looked back in my mirror. I had scratches that looked like claw marks from the nape of my neck running down to my lower back. Part of the scratches were bleeding. I slept with the light on and my Bible across on my nightstand. My husband slept downstairs, and I had my 2 dogs sleep in bed with me. I did not sleep well and kept waking up scared. I woke up this morning very tired and sore, but I got myself up and went to work. I will not let this entity control my life. I'm not sure if it is still there or not, but I know I'm not letting it take my house. Yeah, that one, definitely bad spirits. And I don't know, listening to all the shows that I've listened to lately, I work like 11 and a half hours and listen to podcasts all day long. I do keep on coming across a lot of the same talk and stuff, and I don't know, I mean, I do believe there's a God and I do believe there's a Satan, but I also do understand and hear a lot of the podcast shows, from the guests that are talking, that everybody thinks everything that happens that's negative is demonic. And not everything has to be demonic. It could just be a bad or angry spirit, I would say this was definitely very angry spirit, but scratches, I kind of consider that demonic. I mean, if something's going to scratch you and throw a shampoo bottle at you, that seems to be very out to harm you. And I think that just an angry spirit, they might do some things, but I don't think they're actually going to do physical harm to you. I don't know. I hope that they can actually take over their house and claim it for their own. I thank you, lucky girl, for that story, and I hope that everything works out for you. And like I was saying before, I want to once again throw it out there. Get your friends to check out the Paranormal Planes podcast, and send me stories. Even if you send a story, send another one. I open up the phone lines once in a while. I'd love to hear from people on the phone. I can either record their story and add it to the podcast, or if they want to, if they don't like their voice or whatnot, call and tell me your story, and then I will read it or relay it onto the podcast myself. If you don't want to talk, don't like the sound of your voice, there's all kinds of ways to get in your stories to me. And remember, I am intrigued with it all, in which I think the audience is pretty much intrigued with anything paranormal as well. I mean, the Bigfoots, UFOs, I don't know, any cryptids, any kind of thing that is absolutely paranormal. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. I like all kinds of things paranormal. And let's see, you can put your stories right on the Paranormal Planes podcast page, or send them in a message to me. When I open up the lines, we can get them that way. There's lots of ways to get your stories in. Very much appreciate them. Very much appreciate everyone that listens to the podcast. And very much appreciate everyone that tunes in and listens to me while I go on my bourbonized rage. But I tell you what, sometimes in life you just need to do that. And I've needed to do that all week long, but I've just been working in a good boy, so I haven't been partaking. And tonight was the night I said, you know what? I need to get back into the podcasting, and I need to mix a few drinks. Give a shout out once again as well to what I would say is our sponsor. It'd be Hillbillies Repurpose Project Center at 805 North Maple here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. These guys, I tell you what, I mean, my podcast room would not look half as cool as it does without these guys. They've got it all. I mean, this 6-foot king's throne rocking chair, my bull skulls, my creepy dolls, my horns that are up here. I mean, these guys have it all, from the most beautiful antiques you've ever seen in your life to just the odd stuff that you won't see anywhere else. And they have it just all in their nice little shop there. You just got to go check it out. It's absolutely amazing, and thanks for all you guys do for me, to make my room feel, let's say, homey to me. To me, homey is not normal. I feel the best when I don't feel normal. That just doesn't make any sense to anybody else, but it makes perfect sense to me. Thanks for helping me be creepy, Hillbillies Repurpose Project Center. Alright, let's get on to the next story. going on to a Bigfoot encounter in Colorado, Summit County, actually, there in Colorado. And there is no name given with this story. It's just an anonymous, and we absolutely respect that here. My husband and I were camping in Eagle Nest Wilderness, Colorado, early June 2013. While hiking on the trail, we encountered a larger than normal amount of snow due to late snowstorms. We were a few miles up the trail from Surprise Lake when we heard a low growl. We thought this must be a mountain lion due to the snow and inability to travel quickly. We doubled back to Surprise Lake and set up camp for the night. While sitting lakeside, I saw a large, brownish-red animal across the lake. The animal was large and appeared to be walking upright. My rational mind said, "It's just a deer or another large animal that lives in the wilderness. Disregard what I thought I saw." Later that evening, around dusk, my husband and I were sitting in the tent when we heard what sounded like a knock against a tree. We looked out the tent door and didn't see anything. Again, I assumed this must have been a woodpecker, another animal, or a hiker. We continued talking and looked around. I told my husband it sounded like a rock thrown against a tree and said, "Let me show you what it sounded like." I picked up a hard, sound rock and threw it against the tree. Immediately, a similar sound came back. I assumed it was an echo, and I did it again. Again, a similar sound came back. My husband then asked if I saw something move up the hillside and explained where he saw movement. A large brownish-red animal was peeking out from behind the tree. The animal was swaying back and forth behind the tree. The animal appeared to be squatted down, swaying or peeking out from behind the tree. It had a large head with large brow line, large shoulders and nose. The nose and upper lip appeared to be a lighter color than the rest of the animal seen. We took our sport camera and tried to take pictures of the animal, but it was about 40 feet up a hillside. We have a blurry picture, but it appears to have been a large animal head in the picture. As we watched the animal sway back and forth, we heard a large knock behind us to the left, towards the lake. Then heard a knock up towards the animal we saw, then back behind us. The feeling was very odd and made us feel very uncomfortable. My husband wanted to hike out, but due to the late evening, I suggested we stay and hike out first thing in the morning. We carry a large knife, bear spray, and a gun with us, so I felt somewhat safe. It was a very restless night, and first daylight we packed our bags and left. After hiking out and getting in the car to drive off, we discussed what we witnessed, and both could not explain what we saw. This has taught me to not throw rocks against trees. I don't know, my personal feelings, I think I would continue to throw rocks to the trees. I mean, Bigfoot is one of those things that I just absolutely adore. And I think it'd be awesome to have even that as a communication with them. I think they are, intelligent creatures. I think there would be a way that you could communicate with them somewhat. I don't know. I think it'd be amazing to encounter one. And they never seem like, well, maybe if you're getting into their territory and they have like little ones around or something, then they get like kind of pissed off at you. But it always seems like they're more like curious than anything, because there's so many reports of them being around and being very near people, and they don't just come out and like psycho attack people. They're just as curious as we are. What are you and what are you doing in this area. you know, I don't know. Some people think we're all nuts for believing in ghosts and UFOs and aliens and such, but come on, let's be realistic. There has to be more out there than just us, because, like, what a waste if you would just make people human beings, and not make anything else. I just don't see that happening, and I don't see making an infinite universe and only putting our life on the planet. There has to be something else out there. With an infinite universe, there has to be people out there besides us, or what a waste of infinity, as you would say. Thanks for taking the journey with me tonight, guys. Please get in more stories for us and share the Paranormal Planes podcast page with your friends. Encourage them to send stories in. I want to just keep this going, and I don't know, just hopefully everybody is enjoying it so far. At least leave me some input on, a post, or post something, how you like it. I don't know. Still very new to this, but it's something that I want to continue doing and continue to have people, like it and tune in when the next episode's up, and hopefully be just as excited for the paranormal as I am, and especially for, the paranormal stories from the Great Plains, our own special little area. I know there's ghost stories out there all over the world, but that's why I wanted to make this podcast. It's just for us people in the Great Plains area. We've got a lot of hauntings and a lot of history here that I would love to just keep, putting out people's stories out there so they know, hey, the Great Plains is badass. You think you got ghosts? Listen to these stories. Hey guys, for now, I'm going to sign out. I've been up since 5:30 a.m. and it is 11:17 p.m. Thank you for taking the ride with me tonight, and hey, I can't wait to hear from you, and I can't wait to hear your stories. For now, have a great night. I'm out. God bless.